2/3 of Americans are at risk to experience blackout. You could be one of them, sitting in the dark and cold for hours, for days, maybe even weeks. Are you ready to protect your family? You could be with Patriot Power Solar Generator 2000X. Folks say this new solar generator from 4Patriots is worth its weight in gold. Why? Because this generator has double the capacity and is expandable so you can run the big appliances like your fridge even longer. Or other devices like an electric blanket, microwave, RV air conditioner, or even an electric wheelchair. You also get 12 outlets, including 4 AC outlets, so you can power more devices at once, and 2 USB-C outlets, which can charge your phone 20 times faster than a regular plug. Best of all, this new solar generator is fume-free, safe to use inside, and never needs gas, ever. Over 150,000 Americans trust Patriot Power generators. Go to 4patriots.com/VTTGW to get your solar generator now. You'll even get a solar panel included free.
Hey, what's up, Mental Health Nation? Thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys are having a great Thursday. It's a special night for the Mental Health Warrior Night on Wednesday. Unfortunately, Lynn won't be on tonight. She's got to pick her kids up for soccer and stuff. You know, the life of a single mom, sort of, because she's a geographical bachelor. Her husband is down in Norfolk. So, hey, Lynn, stay in there, stay safe. And hey, we all get it. We've all been in the military. We totally understand. You know how it is. I was that way for over 2 years watching my sons. But hey, real quick, I want to say, hey, big shout out to 4Patriots. Hey, listen, there's some strange things going on in the world. I won't jump into that, but it might be a good time to look into that. You can save a little bit of money. Go ahead and log on there and check out all the great things they have. Also, with that, you see up the QR code up there, the WAA. For Reads Across America. We all know what that program is. I'm so thankful to be part of them, part of the radio show program. But, you click on that link and you can donate $5 to donate for Reads Across America Radio to ensure that, our veterans have that wreath on their tombstone during the holiday season. It's such an important way, and it's just an easy way to give back. We always want to, give back some and just makes you feel good. It's like my mental health minute last week when my neighbors were sick and I took the dog out for a walk, Lorenzo, and I made a video of it. Cute little dog. But, I couldn't bring my dog with me to Italy. So times I get missing Falco. So I just take their dog for a walk. And so it all works out. And it helped them out too. It's always good to help out people. But, with that, my podcast, if you miss it, if you want to re-listen to it, you can listen to it on Reads Across America Radio. Super easy to find. Just download your favorite app, whether it's iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn app, or the Odyssey app. Search for Reads, and Reads Across America Radio will pop up, and you can just download it. And for all the great programming, I think they have like 50 podcasts on there now. They're really growing, and I'm really proud to be part of it. They replay my podcast Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m., and I'm sure that may change some, as they shift programs around. But if that change does happen, I will let you guys know. But I hope everybody's having a great week. Here in Italy, it's been absolutely awesome. I think spring's coming here. I guess it comes early in Italy. But since I've been here, since I got here in December, the temperature's been running 60s, mid 60s, low 60s during the day, and 40s at night, high 40s at night, low 50s. So it's really been nice. I would say that Chris just texted every day. If you think about visiting Italy, a lot of people want to come in the summertime, but they're so busy. But if you're coming from a cold state, and by cold, I mean anything, I guess, above Florida, or, lower Texas, El Paso, where Nick lives, you'll enjoy the weather here in February, and things are a lot cheaper. Hotels are cheaper. There's not a lot of tourists around. We were at Monopoly, which is on the other side of Greece, on the Athens Sea last weekend. I posted a lot of great pictures about that. Me and Lloyd actually got in the ocean and swam. It wasn't too bad. It's 53 degrees. But the weather was really warm outside. So, we really didn't feel cold. I did lots of sea glass collecting. You guys can see photos of that. I'm big into sea glass. Apparently, here in Italy, sea glass isn't a thing. So, kudos for me. I found a lot of rare pieces, so I was super excited about that. But, as we get into today's show, if you've been watching my mental health minutes this week, I really wanted to talk about going to therapy because, last week I was talking about recovery and the importance of recovery. Recovery can be hard. It can be tough. There's a lot of ups and downs to it. Things be going good and something happens and you relapse. And, if somebody has PTSD and anybody out there who has it, triggers can come at any time. You can be walking outside, you get a smell, hear a stick snap, a car could screech tires, you could hear fireworks go off. Anything can trigger you. And, when those triggers get too much or when you're just getting tired of the rut that you're in and maybe you're drinking a lot or maybe you're taking, drugs or something else. And now you finally made the choice. I got to make a change. I have to change this. And, one thing I've been talking about a minute is, when you go to therapy. And it made me really think about when I first started therapy and kind of what I went through and kind of what I've gone through the years since the first went to therapy. Um, and kind of things that I had to learn within myself going to therapy because it's not easy, it's hard. And, if you made that first choice to go to therapy, that was probably one of the hardest choices you made in your life. And never take that for granted or never lessen that because that's a huge step. That's a big milestone. And a lot of people never get to that milestone. Now, what do I mean by therapy? Therapy could mean going to see a therapist. It could mean going to see a licensed clinical social worker. It could be talking to a life coach. I've had life coaches on here, Rachel, before, and she was actually my life coach. And so, it's going to see a professional to help you with what you're dealing with or what's going on with you. And there could be a lot of reasons behind what you're dealing with. It could be PTSD from trauma. It could be from, childhood trauma. It could be from, sexual trauma. It could just be from a lot of things. And maybe it could just be you had a death in your family, somebody who's really close to you who died suddenly, and you feel really depressed about that, or maybe your spouse passed away, or something tragic happened in your life, and it kind of puts you going down a path that you need to change that direction. And so by changing that direction, you decided I'm going to go to therapy. Okay. I know from my personal experience in going to therapy, I was very anti-therapy back when I had my suicide attempt and was command directed into counseling. And I lied to my counselor. I didn't, I wasn't truthful with him, and of course, he couldn't treat me properly, and that led up to my suicide attempt. And it was after my suicide attempt that I looked differently when I went into therapy, and it kind of made me reflect upon that a little bit when I was down at the beach. So, I'm down there, I'm barefooted, I'm walking in the water, Lloyd and Crystal's doing their thing. And I'm kind of off by myself, wading in the water and just kind of thinking about things. And really, I started reflecting. I'm not too sure why. But I started thinking about, when I went to therapy and the things that I did wrong and the things I should have done differently. And I really thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to talk about that this week. It's not going to be easy for me. Of course, a lot of things I talk about aren't easy for me, but this was really kind of difficult because, I'll probably, talk about things or deal with some demons that, I just haven't dealt with in a while, but that's okay. I can deal with it. I think it's important for my listeners to hear this. I think February, we're coming to the end of February. It's going to be March soon. That transition from winter to spring for a lot of people is hard. And we know that suicide rates go up in the spring. And I never really understood that. But after talking to a lot of the professionals in the field and of course to my therapist, they kind of gave me a better understanding of why that is. And if you're in a dark place or if you're not in a good place or you're dealing with a lot of stuff, what happens in the spring? You've gone through the dead of winter, it's been cold, temperatures getting warmer, the grass is turning green from brown, the daffodils are coming up, and things are looking anew again. But if you're still dark inside and you don't, that things being anew to you brings you pain. I get that. I totally understand that, you know, when things are starting to change for the better, I'm talking about nature, but you're still not ready for that, it can be very stressful and very hard. And I think for a lot of people, it's just an extra added layer of stress going on. And really what you should be doing is embracing it and going outside and feeling the warmth of the sun, or looking at the moon at night. But I understand it. I get that. I understand, not wanting to go outside. I understand not wanting to see the sun. I understand wanting to stay in the room. I want to understand to close yourself off from others. I get that. I understand that. I've been that person. I've been there, and I'll never go back there. Hopefully, I won't ever go back there again. I will try everything in my power not to. And this is why I'm talking about what we're talking about this week. But with that, so let's say it's now November, and now I'm going to jump into therapy. No, February. I'm sorry. Now it's February. It's coming in the spring. I don't want to feel like this through another spring. Hey, Brian, thanks for tuning in. And so I made a choice that I'm going to make that change, and I'm going to go see somebody to talk about my issues and problems. You made that choice. It's very stressful, but you made it. And my mental health minute the other day was, I was talking about, now you made the choice, right? And so now I'm going to go see a therapist. I don't have my notebook in here, so I just grabbed my book. Sorry. And so one of the things I talked about, and one of the things I didn't do, and I kind of wish I would have done, and I learned it later on in different therapy sessions, is the night before you go to therapy, right? Your mind's going to be going 1,000 miles an hour, right? You're going to be nervous. You're going to be scared. You're going to be thinking all these different things. And then you could be thinking about, what am I going to talk about? What I'm not going to talk about? I was just all over the place. And one thing that I found helpful was, and I talked about, is maybe sit down and think about what you want to accomplish with the first time you see a therapist. He's not going to fix everything one go at it, right? And so, what are the maybe top 5 things? May have 10 things, may have 20 things, but what are the key things that you want to start talking with your therapist about? What is it that at this moment, at this time, you want to write down, so when you walk into that room, you can start talking about that? Because the reason I wish I would have wrote things down prior to going to is, once you get in there and once you're sitting there, you're going to become very emotional, and if you're like me, my mind gets scrambled, and you may not talk about something you really want to talk about. And I'll talk about this later. When you leave that therapy session, it might upset you, it might depress you or something. Because you forgot about it and you get to talk about it. Even though you may have another session then the following day, or the next week, or whenever your next appointment is, it'll bother you. And so we don't want to have that happen. And so one thing that I learned is, I would write down some of the things that I would want to talk about in therapy. And being alcohol free is helpful. Yes, great point there, Bill. Oh, Billy. So, I would write down things I want to talk about. Okay, let's see. What did Cliff want to talk about in his first therapy session? And you guys know what my suicide attempt's about. And so I wanted to know why I feel guilty all the time, because I didn't understand that. Why, in my mind, I know that people who didn't get out immediately, um, died instantly, right? At the Pentagon. I'm talking about the Pentagon. So why do I constantly feel guilt of not finding anybody alive? Why does that still bother. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about when I was going through therapy. So I wrote that down. And then why does that guilt? How does that manifest into me having bad dreams? Because I didn't understand that. I didn't understand me having that thought ran into me having bad dreams. And then the bad dreams is what led me to start drinking more because I didn't want to have those dreams and thoughts of what I had saw and had gone through. And I didn't understand that. And for anybody who's been there who has abuse problems, and I had an alcohol abuse problem, it's hard for me to talk about certain things, especially when you're coming out of the fog of the alcohol. And Bill, that was a great point you brought up about the alcohol or alcohol free. And so, of course, for me, I would never drink until night, until my kids were in bed, and that's when I drank. I never drank during the day. Never drank at work. It was always at night. But I'm pounding a lot of alcohol because I'm drinking at a short amount of time before I go to bed and have to get up early. And so I would write down the things that I wanted to talk with the therapist about because I knew that once we got in there and we started talking and building that rapport early on, there's some things that I wanted to talk about and maybe some short-term answers I wanted to get. So then maybe I could have that self-reflection time after I leave. And I found out that when I'm in there with the therapist or whomever it is, that having that time with him for me, I'm telling you right now, my brothers and sisters, I had a wall that went up as soon as I walked through that therapist door that was 40 feet high and 6 miles thick. I had it. And even though I made my list of things I wanted to talk about, and I was all cool and hanging in there, and yeah, I got this or whatever, whew, I walked through that door, and I'm telling you what, that wall went up, and I shut down. I'm glad I wrote down the things that I wrote down, but I'm telling you right now, I shut down. And the therapist was very good. He, I say he, I would say my better therapists have been with females, but everybody's different, right? I always say find a therapist that you're comfortable with. But I would say that she was very good about asking me. Of course, no, I didn't do AA. About she just start very general questions. How you doing? What brings you in today? How you feeling? All this stuff, and she wouldn't jump right into it. I've gone to therapists where they would just jump right into it, especially since I was a suicide survivor. When I went back into therapy, they always want to talk about my suicide attempt. That's kind of turned me off against therapy, but I'm not going to go on that tangent. But so I'm sitting there. I got this big wall up, and I completely forget everything I want to talk about. And so one thing I talk about in the mental health minute is I always brought a bottle of water. And if you guys notice when I do my minute, I take a drink because I get thirsty. But I would have that bottle of water, and I would take the cap off, and I would take a drink. And that would give me a secondary wall from the wall that I put up from the therapist. And that sounds kind of stupid and silly, but it's true because that became my safe wall. And so the seconds that I just took a drink just now allowed me to refocus myself and start myself bringing that wall down. Because if I always had that wall up, I was never going to get through it, right? And so it was tough. And so that bottle of water, and I talked about the mental health minute and just taking the cap off and taking a drink, gave me the moment of clarity so then I could start relaxing some. And that's the big part is one, being relaxed. Two, building a rapport with the person whom you're going to therapy with. That's a big deal to have. And I'll get into that, Bill, because that's a great point of bringing in your family and your significant other with therapy when you're ready and feel comfortable for that. But you know, having a rapport with your therapist is so important. And my first therapist I had that I lied to, I didn't have a good rapport with him. And so it was very easy for me to lie to him. Now, when I came back after my suicide attempt, I saw somebody else. And I wind up having a good rapport with that person. It was actually was an older female. And I was able to kind of open up and be more honest and truthful about, why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And then it hit, right? You hit the emotional roller coaster in your first therapy session, or I did. And now all the things that you've been holding back, just all of a sudden the floodgates open, right? And I was all over the place. And I just had to, for me, I had to stop for a second and sit back and slow down. Not that she told me to. This is me, myself. This is me doing this. And I opened up my notebook. I got my notebook here and I opened it up and I started flipping through the pages. And I get back to the points of what I wanted to talk about. And it was at that moment I realized, you know what? I'm going to read my list off to her. Because I know that once I start opening back up again, I'm going to go all over the place. So I open up my book and I say, this first therapy session, these are the things for me that I would like to talk about. And I said, can we please go through the list? And we went through the list and she wrote it down. And some things I had already touched on when I went on my emotional rambling point. And so we were able to talk, with that first session about some of the things that I wanted, that was important to me. Now, we talked about, you'll always talk about other stuff because as a therapist, you'll be very good about directing a conversation. And, I also took notes during the therapy session because she may say some things that I'm not going to remember because I'm emotionally all over the place. I know as soon as I walk out that door, I'm going to be emotionally drained. And so I also wrote down some things she said, that could help. Now, go back to the point that Billy was talking about. When you're going to therapy and you're the one having issues or problems, and it was me. When you leaving that therapy session, right now, you have to go back home, and you may have children, you may have a wife, a significant other, and now you have to talk with them. And that was what my mental health minute today was about. Is one, ask your therapist how to handle that. And they'll give you guidelines on what you say, only talk about things that you're comfortable with, and only talk about, whatever you're comfortable with, I guess for lack of a better term, I'll just say it twice, but that's hard because you don't want to go back and relive your therapy session. And there's things that you'll talk about in therapy that should only stay in therapy, that shouldn't be talked to with others. Everybody's different, and you'll know what those are. But in today's mental health minute, if you notice, I walked out of my house and I went down and I got in my car and I sat in my car. And it was weird because if you watch that video, I'm reliving a moment that I did that when I came out of therapy. Because I went, and you can see it on my face. I didn't notice it till I watched the video again. But now you're out of there, and now you're back in your own space. You're not in front of the therapist, and now you have your own thoughts. And being in military and everything, we just want to go, go, go. And I wish I would have done this, but I didn't. I learned it later on. It's okay just to sit in the car for a moment and take that moment for yourself, right? And think about what was said. Think about what you talked about. And if there's some things that pop in your head that during the conversation with your therapist that you wish you would have talked about, take out your notebook and write them in there. And I was very bad about this. I was horrible about journaling. I was horrible about writing things. And I probably would have been off a lot better off had I done this more. But sit there and think about it. And then if there's some stuff that you didn't cover that your next therapy session you want to cover, jot down some. You don't have to write down everything. Just some people can write a word and it'll jog their memory. Memory joggers. Just write down something that'll jog your memory, so the next time you go and see your therapist that you can talk about those things. But then while you're sitting in your car alone, thinking about everything, think about how you're going to talk to your spouse when you get home. Think about, maybe you're not going to talk to your spouse, but kind of come up with a plan on, what you're going to talk about or not talk about. And if you got to write that down and make a list of things, maybe you want to pick the phone up and call your spouse while you're in the car and talk to them right then and there. Or your significant other. And if you have children, maybe you want to have that conversation, maybe not face to face, but maybe on the phone. Maybe a text message. People communicate differently nowadays. So however you communicate or whatever you feel comfortable with, do it. So if you want to call your wife at that point, you're sitting in the car, said, "Hey, honey, I just finished my first therapy session. These are the things that we went over," and kind of talk about whatever you want to talk about. And then, move on from there. Or maybe you want to wait home or just call and say, "Hey, I'm done with the therapy session. It went great. We'll talk about some things when I get home and some things we just won't talk about." And I think, for them to understand not to be too prying, to know that your family needs to know this too, that when you come home from that therapy session, you're going to be mentally drained and probably physically drained too, because it's mentally and physically hard on you because you probably didn't sleep good the night before, and now you just went through this session, and so your mind's 20,000 miles, going crazy. And you need to find some type of techniques or something to help with that once you get home. And I think, for me, obviously it would be maybe go for a walk. Maybe you and your spouse go out and go for a walk after dinner, and maybe talk about some of the things you wanted to talk about in therapy session. Or maybe it's during dinner you talk about it. But find a way to have that outlet, but also find, space for yourself. Um, and just be careful though, because if you start feeling overwhelmed, or if you start feeling depressed, or if you start having, those thoughts come up because you just relived the traumatic event again, probably in therapy, and you'll do that several times going through therapy. It always happens. Is know that that's okay, and know it's fine once you get out of that place of being in the therapist's office to have a wide range of emotions again. And some people will and some people won't. Everybody's different. But if you do have that, just what you can do to, you know, feel better in that space. Maybe it's call a friend. Maybe it's get online and go to veteranstrashtalk.com or go to the Facebook page of Veterans Trash Talk and speak with some veterans, or reach out to a friend, or, you know, go hang out with a neighbor or something. Just whatever you need to do to decompress yourself after that very emotional and trying event. Because I that's something I wish I would have done. Because, after my suicide attempt and I went back into therapy, and I talk about January, always a bad month for me. I never really talked to anybody. because I was going through a failed relationship, and I didn't have my children at that time, and so I didn't trust friends, and I'm 1,236 miles away from my family. Veterans Trash Talk didn't exist then. uh, so I really didn't talk to anybody, and I kind of wish I would have. I kind of wish I would have done that when I was thinking about that. Just have that conversation with somebody. In my case, it probably would have been a friend, probably Jack Dutil, who's been on the show. Probably should have called and talked to him more than I did. But have that conversation with somebody. If you're feeling, down and depressed, but if you start having those feelings a lot, write down what you were thinking or why you were thinking that, and I tell you why. Because the next time you go see your therapist, right? If you talk with them about the emotional roller coaster that you went through when you went home, they might be able to, more than likely, will give you some good tips to help you. So maybe it's not such a traumatic event for you, or maybe it will help you when you go through that emotional roller coaster. Because as bad as the first day of therapy was, probably day 5 is going to be the worst day of therapy, or whenever you really dive into that trauma. Those days are going to be the hard days. And those days is when you're going to need your book, right? Those days are when you're going to need your notebook. Those days are when you're going to really work on those tools that therapist is going to give you, because that's going to be some sucky ass days. I've been there. I know it. And you really got to have that good, strong support staff. You got to have some tools in your box to deal with that, because what we don't want to have happen is we don't want you to relapse and start doing substances again to cope with it. And that in itself is another layer of problems and issues. Because if you were taking a substance, alcohol, drugs, whatever, to help hide or mask your pain, when you go back and start reliving that pain again and talking with your therapist, that can cause you relapse. That can cause you to maybe go home and have a drink, or go do whatever it is you were doing before. And you have to really fight hard not to do that. But you know what? If it happens and you have a drink, or you do something you know you shouldn't do, but you do it, it's okay. It's fine. You did it. It's over with. The next time you go to therapy, you'll talk about it. And the next time it happens, maybe you won't do it because you feel guilty because you did it the first time. And maybe you'll be a little bit stronger. Guilty wasn't a good word, because when you're in that weakened state, or when you're in that state of recovery, or when you're in that moment, and I talk about this, is, relapses are going to occur. I'm sure anybody out there who's dealt with drug or alcohol issues understand that. And so when those relapses happen, and some people take that as a failure, some people never recover from a relapse. But just know that we're all human. We all have issues. We all have problems. But a relapse doesn't have to be a super, super bad negative, right? For lack of a better term. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a guy who's gone through some effed up shit. But, it's okay. I think for a lot of people, when they relapse, or when they go into therapy and they dig into the ugliness of why they're there, and they go home and they have a drink or they do something, don't beat yourself up too bad about it. Now, I would say, if it starts getting too bad, then you need to talk to your therapist about it and say, "Hey, I'm just having a hard time. It's this isn't working, or something's got to change," and maybe they can change the direction of the therapy. But try a little self control, right? And I talked about this with my doctor, who said, How many drinks do you have a day? It's like, I drink 4 drinks a day. And he said, well, how about just have 3 drinks a day? That's all he said. He didn't tell me to quit drinking. He didn't tell me anything. He said, just cut it by 1, cut it by a half, cut it by an ounce. I don't know. Cut a little bit. And then the next year, he just said the same thing again. And so just have that heartfelt conversation with your therapist if you're having those issues again, or if that substance abuse starts creeping back into your life as you're going through your therapy sessions, because it's important. But don't beat yourself up too bad about it, right? You did a great job. You walked through that door. You decided you're going to start therapy. You decided you was important. You decided it's time for a change. And if you slip up a little bit, it's okay. It's all right. It happens to everybody. It happened to me more than once. So don't beat yourself up too bad about it. Don't think that now you're a lost cause and you're not worth it, and you're not going to go back to therapy, and you might as well just keep doing what you're doing. Nothing's going to change. Don't go down that road. Don't do it. You walk through that door for a reason, and there's going to be little bumps in the road, maybe big mountains in the road. Just keep pushing forward. And just like I talked about in a minute, you keep pushing over the mountain, up the mountain. Eventually, you're going to go over the mountain, and then it's going to flatten out. Could take months, could take years. Eventually, you'll get there. And anybody who's been through recovery, or anybody who's gone through that, they know it, right? I know it because I've been through it. When I have my relapses, or if something upsets me, or if things are going sideways, I know techniques because I learned them over the years on things that I can do to help myself be better, right? And this is why I do the mental health minutes. This is why I do the Mental Health Warrior podcast, is I want to help people maybe, and I'm real when I talk. I don't sugarcoat nothing. To know that it's okay to have those thoughts and feelings. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be a man and cry. It's okay to be a man and want a hug. It's okay. Well, just be careful with that. But I mean, it's okay to have those feelings. If you're a single parent, if you're a mom, if you're a single dad, it's hard to show emotions because you're around your kids all day. You got a lot of things going on. It gets very stressful, very hectic. And you kind of forget those kinds of things. But just know it's all okay. And if you're going through therapy and you've gone through that first therapy session, and you've said, "Oh, Cliff, I did everything you said. I wrote everything down in the book, and I made notes of everything." And when you get into the hard part of therapy, that's when your demons are going to sneak back in, right? That's when you got to be a little bit stronger than you was before you walked through that door for the first time. And I know you can do it because you walked through the door and you're a strong person. You might not think you are, but you are. You're a strong person because you're still here. And you're still here for a reason. And your life has meaning. You are important, whether you think you are or not. You deserve it. And this is your time to get better. And this is your time to live the best life that you can live. I know it is. Because obviously, it happened to me. It wasn't easy. Good years, bad years. January's a still sucky ass month for me, but whatever. I've learned to deal with it. So just know that never think that you're worthless, because I don't care who you are. You're never worthless. Nobody's ever worthless. If you're on this planet and you're a human being, your life is not worthless. You have a purpose. Now, whether or not you found that purpose yet or not, maybe you haven't, but you have a purpose in this life. And it might be as easy as raising your children. It might be as easy as helping your neighbor, or just being there for somebody. Everybody has a purpose in this life. And if you had told me 10 years ago my military career would have ended the way it ended, and I would be doing a podcast and I would have a book out and all this other stuff, I would have been like, yeah, right, whatever. No way. But it happened. And, it's a testament that things can get better. You can learn to enjoy the sunshine and enjoy seeing the moon and other things. And just know it can always get better. With that, I'm going to go ahead and end my podcast. I hope you guys, everybody out there listening, enjoyed it. I hope that maybe you took some notes, and when you go through therapy, if you're going through stuff right now, or maybe you haven't decided to go to therapy yet, make that choice. Pick up the phone, make that call, get that appointment made, and start down the road to recovery because you're worth it. Life's too short. We get one go around here, and that's it. And make the best of it. And I know it sucks, and I know trauma sucks, and I know substance abuse sucks, but you can get through it, and you can go on to live your absolute best life that you can live. And that's all you can do. You live day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, second by second. And that's all we can do, right? And so with that, I want to say thank you to everybody tuning in. Please remember, you can listen to my podcast on Reach Across America Radio. We play it at Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time and Sundays at 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Super easy found is just go to your favorite app, your app store, and go to iHeartRadio, to your TuneIn app, the Odyssey app, search for Reach Across America Radio, and you can find the program. And I got their hat right here. See, Reach Across America Radio. It's pretty awesome. You can also click on the QR code so you can donate to Reach Across America to make sure that the wreaths are on the tombstones of our fallen brothers and sisters, during the holiday season. But thanks for everybody for tuning in. Thanks everybody for your comments, for Billy and Brian. I appreciate it. Good luck with your appointment on the 10th. Let us know how that goes. And with that, you guys have a great rest of the week. Please take care and listen. We are our brothers and sisters keepers out there. And so please check up on each other. With spring coming on, it's a rough time for everybody. A lot of crazy crap's going on right now. So let's take care of each other because the end run, that's all we have is each other. And you guys have a great, wonderful week and take care.
This is a food warning. The UN warns of an unprecedented global hunger crisis. In fact, it's predicted by 2030 that 800 million folks will struggle to feed their families, which means two dangerous things for you. Number one, higher prices at the grocery store. Number two, less food available. And when panic strikes, it will be chaos, making it even harder to get the food your family needs to survive. That's why it's vital, more than ever, to have a survival food stockpile. Introducing the deluxe 3-month survival food kit from 4 Patriots. It has 688 servings of meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, with delicious recipes like pancakes, mac and cheese, Aztec chili, and potato soup. They've even got spaghetti and lasagna. This isn't your typical survival food, and over 200,000 smart Americans agree. This is survival food that actually tastes good. But best of all, it's designed to last up to 25 years. You can stash it away and be confident that when a disaster strikes, you and your family will be ready. Go to 4patriots.com/VTT to get the deluxe 3-month survival food kit and the peace of mind you deserve.